All right, welcome everyone. Happy to see you here. Maybe we'll have a few more other folks trickle in too. So Connie had asked me to start with an opening, centering, so which I'm happy to do. So just invite us all to completely be fully present and here. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. And we just settle into this co-creative resonant field together. And just take a couple of nice deep breaths in. And with each inhale, allow yourself to feel the gravity of the earth just holding you very gently where you're seated. And then with each successive breath, allow yourself to become more present. In your mind's eye, see a web of connection, all of us connected heart to heart. And even at the center of that web, we can envision Barbara and feel into her presence, just holding this space for us. And further affirming what I've heard from so many people lately, that Barbara's presence continues to be very strong. I'm just grateful for her love, her guidance, her encouraging us in the evolutionary impulse from the other side. So thank you for that, Barbara. And then as you continue to settle into this space and this resonant field together, and hold Connie and Andrew in the light of love and gratitude as they prepare to bless us with their wisdom tonight. And with that, just take in one last deep breath into your belly, holding at the top for a moment, and then just releasing through your mouth. And when you're ready, open your eyes, be here now. As I hand it off to Connie and Andrew.
Stephen, would you do us all a favor and swing your camera around to that beautiful shrine you have there, just to show that to your mind?
Absolutely. So,
everybody.
So this is opposite of my wall. So I'm looking. This is always present.
There she is.
Beautiful.
So this is the poster that Andrew created at the retreat, or for the retreat. So my thanks to you for entrusting that to me.
Yeah, what an honor, Stephen. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. All yours.
All right. Well, I'm just going to say a few words, and that is that we are assuming that each of you are pretty well advanced on your journey to wholeness in your spiritual path, and that we want to involve you as much as possible. We don't want to be taking this time to be talking at you. And I sent you some exercises. I don't know how many people were able to do it. It doesn't really matter. We'll walk through one of them, and we will just see where we get to in an hour and a half. And what I'm sort of saying, we're becoming beloved through moving beyond duality, through trust in a conscious, loving, abundant universe. So what we want to do, Andrew's going to read the opening prayer of the book, because this is an indigenous cosmology quantum science synthesis, where it's informed by indigenous cosmology. So we wanted to bring in the indigenous way and indigenous thinking, because that has motivated so much of this trust frequency construct on the nature of the universe. We actually feel that humanity is simply out of balance because we don't understand how the universe works. So what we're going to look at is not a new, but a construct on the nature of the universe. So we'll proceed.
We'll proceed.
I have a suggestion that
yes.
everybody mute themselves, because if you're recording, there's some feedback going
I was
on.
going to ask that. I thought.
Thanks, Shakina.
Yeah, thank you.
So, as we are in Colorado, and we're in the country, are we in Ute country here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are in Native American territory. I'm a white guy who sailed across the ocean back in 1969 and ended up in the United States and connecting with the native spirit here as well. And I wanted to just show this. We just came back from Santa Fe, where actually we met with Shakina on Saturday. And thank you for that, Shakina. That was a beautiful, valuable meeting. Thank you so much. Do you all know the symbol of Kokopelli? Does that make sense to all of you? Including you faraway folks like in Bangladesh, Roxana. So he is sort of a trickster, sort of a deity, sort of a fertility god, perhaps, musician, and a spreader of seeds. So we were looking for a symbol that would invoke the spirit of indigenous peoples on this planet of ours throughout time and history and in every culture or every continent on the planet. And of course, Kokopelli equals MC squared. It's the new math, so go figure. And MC squared simply, for me, represents all of Western science, or everything that we brought to the story. So the indigenous and the ancient ones have brought so much. And then we, too, have so much, are in the midst of contributing so much to the collective wisdom, intelligence, knowledge, capacity of humanity. And obviously there are challenges, and obviously the world is not 100% ideal right now. So our mission here as evolutionary ambassadors, I believe, is to kind of seed and trigger that evolution that Barbara was always talking about, moving perhaps from Homo sapiens to Homo universalis or Homo amore universalis. So on that note, we're going to start with a prayer from a Native American elder. All right, so if you just all listen to this gently, and I'm going to take you on this beautiful little journey. So the opening prayer, and this is the opening prayer of the book. This is what sets the sacred space of the Trust Frequency book. There
it is in Bangladesh.
Beaming in from Bangladesh. Thank you, Roxana. Grandfather, creator of all that exists, with this sacred pipe, hear my prayer. As the new day dawns, let all people begin anew to walk the good red road of life. May we forget our differences. May we remember our likenesses. Let us hear what we have not heard. Let us see what we have not seen. It is the spark of the universe, the oneness of all life. In such a way, may we be blessed in a sacred manner. And that is from Wayne Eagleboy. Thank you, Wayne Eagleboy.
So what we want to do now is we sent out a worksheet, basically, to have you go through our definitions and our 10 assumptions and check whether you agree or disagree. And so we're going to go through those definitions and 10 assumptions right now. We're not going to speak about them because I'm sure most of you are very familiar with the concepts. So what we're going to do is say, and I don't know if you have a paper and pen with you, I suggested that you do, but just after each one, agree, disagree, and then what we're going to also add to that is, and we got this from Diane Collins, and that is, there's a concept of knowing it, which is J-N-A-N.
Jnana in the Sanskrit.
In Sanskrit, and then there's the concept of living it, which is vijna. Okay, so there's a difference.
I think it's Vijnana. So there's
Vijnana.
Jnana and Vijnana. As far as I'm probably not getting it right, but it's something like that. So
Okay.
these two ideas, we have these intellectual ideas, we get it, we understand it, but are we living it? Are we walking it?
Yeah. So on this worksheet you have, okay, we're thinking, so one column says, know it, agree, disagree. And the other column says, live it. Sometimes, always, never. Okay?
And that's just up to you. So
Doesn't matter.
If you have the ability to write some notes down, because you're perfectly welcome to totally disagree with what we're proposing. But what we're offering is actually a coherent worldview. It's actually a paradigm. The subtitle of the book is 10 Assumptions for a New Paradigm. A paradigm is really just a set of assumptions. It's a consensus reality, a collection. And an assumption, what's an assumption?
Okay, well,
It's
then we're
really
gonna go
just it's a belief that we take to be true without examination.
Right, we're gonna
I
run
know-
through
I
all
know
that.
that. So, but it's really foundational to this work is that we're offering what we believe to be a coherent reality that if you took the current reality out there in the world, or certainly in the so-called developed world, and flipped it on its head 180 degrees, that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, so what is important in this exercise, ultimately, when you walk away from this evening or when you read the book or whatever, is for the exercise, one has to take these definitions and assumptions as absolutely true. We're not saying they are absolutely true because that's dogma, but as an exercise, there can be no yes, but. Okay, there are no buts. It's absolute understanding of the nature of the universe. And we don't care what you do with it, but as an exercise for it to work in one's life, for one to actually get into the higher frequency, there can be no doubt. Doubt is the Achilles heel of the trust frequency, and it's pure physics. It's simply what vibratory frequency are we vibrating at. So it's not judgment day, it's choice day. What are we going to do with our vibratory level? And we're going to give some tools for understanding what creates our vibratory level from this perspective. So let's go.
So we open the book with what we call the definitions. They're a collection of terms that we, in some cases, use in a radically different way from what you'd find in the dictionary. So we're going to run through those. We're not going to discuss them. We don't have time to go deep with them. But if you would just, when you hear them, just make a note of whether that resonates to you. I agree with that. Whether it's ridiculous, I disagree with that. Whether the jury's out and I don't know, or whether I'm living it day to day.
Living it sometimes, always, never. Okay? SAN.
So this is kind of the mirror of consciousness that we're holding up here. We're going to say, okay, here's a reality. Does this work with you? And we're not going, this is private. So feel free to be really, really honest, because the only person who's going to see it is you. Okay?
Yeah. And then after we do this, because we're going to run right through it, we will ask you each to take 2 minutes. I think 2 minutes.
We were going to do a timer.
Yeah, we need a timer.
Is there someone who could do a 2-minute timer on their cell phone, perhaps?
Well, we could.
Sure, I could do that if you want.
Can you do that, Stephen?
So
Yeah.
afterwards,
Okay,
after we
good.
run through this, we want each of you to tell a true trust tale. Something in your life that has shown you that this reality is possible. Okay? And if you want to share something that shows that this reality is impossible,
Feel free.
feel free. Okay?
Okay.
We want you to share that, just where you feel the universe has shown up to show you that this is hogwash.
So
Okay?
This is either hogwash or it's heaven, and it's our choice.
H and H.
Okay.
All right. So,
So the definitions.
definitions. So
And
I'll
are
do
we going
one,
to do the definitions and then the 10 assumptions and then,
then the thing.
right. So we're going to run through the definitions, run through the 10 assumptions, which is a collection of beliefs, if you will.
Well, it's assumptions. It's axioms. It's about the nature. The axioms.
Yeah,
It's,
there you go.
you know, like in a mathematical equation, you have axioms.
They're actually
Right.
the things upon which we base our reality.
Yeah.
And these
Well,
are
our choices. Anyway, let's
Yeah.
go on.
okay.
Okay. So, assumption, a core belief which we take to be true without question. That's pretty obvious. You want to do the next one?
Okay. Okay, next one's a paradigm. A paradigm is a set of agreed upon assumptions which create a consensus reality.
Well, that's pretty self-evident. Humanity, this is a big one. Okay, this is actually one of the, could be one of the assumptions.
Almost
It's
an
a
overarching-
foundational
Yeah.
to the whole
Mhm.
shooting match. And it takes it onto a personal level, this assumption, this definition. Humanity, a collection of divine, autonomous, sovereign beings who have chosen to incarnate on earth to learn and grow on their soul's journey to wholeness, each with an individual purpose and a unique gift. This is foundational. This
Now-
is the overarching act of free will that we give when we incarnate on earth.
And don't forget to note whether you agree,
Disagree.
disagree, etc. If
Okay.
that's okay with you. All
Okay,
right?
here's the next one.
All right. So, the most misunderstood word in the English language, love. Love is the fundamental unifying and creative force of the universe. I'll say that again. Love, the fundamental unifying and creative force of the universe.
Okay. Next one, frequency. The vibratory rate that determines the characteristics of a particular reality. There is a wide range of frequencies, each with its own reality and its own distinct laws. Okay. The trust frequency.
And I think with regard to frequency, you can see we could devote an entire seminar just to that one definition. Free will.
The trust frequency.
Oh, I'm sorry. The trust frequency. I've heard of it. The trust frequency, where the soul's destiny awaits with more abundance, balance, freedom, and joy than we can fathom. It is where the true nature of the universe is experienced.
Okay, I see some nodding of heads. Free will. The right to choose one's frequency. Okay?
So that's what this training's about. Actually, it's how to slide ourselves up and down the scale of frequency. We're absolutely free to be utterly miserable or totally ecstatic, and it's up to us.
Mhm.
Circumstance. This is from Connie. I am so proud of this view of has anybody here ever felt like a victim of circumstance? Has anyone ever heard that term? Okay, circumstance. The seemingly uncontrollable outward events that influence our decisions. The seemingly uncontrollable outward events that influence our decisions. And one thing we learn in the trust frequency is we're not victims of circumstance, we're beneficiaries of circumstance. It's completely different. Circumstance is very, very much on our side.
Consciousness. Universal consciousness. The primordial life energy of the universe. Human consciousness. The active and passive phenomena of awareness, assumption, attitude, attention, alignment, action, and allowing, which determine our frequency. Those are our 7 A's, the 7 words that begin with A that are aspects of our consciousness that we'll bring up later in the assumptions.
And finally, the universe. We never use the term God, but this is what this is what we're talking about. The universe, all that is, both manifest and unmanifest, also known as God, Creator, Atman, and so on, we call it the conscious, loving universe. So those are the definitions, and if you can accept those and sort of file them away, when we bring up those terms, that's what we mean, and you won't find those definitions in the dictionary.
Not now, later.
Oh,
Once this goes viral and it's understood to be the true nature of the universe, and we align with our true selves and the true nature of the universe, these will be in the dictionary.
Or the new cosmic dictionary.
The new cosmic dictionary.
When's the publication date?
Soon. Okay, so here are the 10 assumptions. We live, this is assumption 1, we live in a conscious, loving universe. There is only love. Agree, disagree, live it, sometimes, always, never.
And you remember what our definition of love was? There is only love, and love is?
The fundamental and unifying and creative force. The fundamental, unifying and creative force of the universe.
It is, in fact, all that exists. There is nothing else.
In this construct,
in this universe.
In this universe. Okay, the next one.
Okay. Assumption number 2. The universe loves us unconditionally. It gives us everything we ask for.
Okay. Agree, disagree, live it, sometimes, always, never. We create, number 3. We create reality by the power of our consciousness. 4.
The 7 A's: awareness, assumption, attitude, attention, alignment, action, and allowing determine our frequency and are our requests to the universe. Okay,
and I will give you those in a sentence. Okay, and it's on page 99 of the book. So you have a PDF of the book, and you have, so the sentence is, with expanded awareness and accurate assumptions, we choose our attitude, consciously direct our attention, align with our highest inner promptings, take committed action, and allow the loving universe to manifest beyond our wildest dreams. Okay, number 5. Oh, that's mine.
Okay.
Free will is an absolute law of the universe. We have the freedom to choose our frequency. We are masters of our own destiny. 6.
And that is, I think, one of the most challenging of these assumptions, because it's very different from most people's belief and often our experience.
Well,
6, remember the definition of circumstance, the seemingly uncontrollable outward events that influence our decisions? So the 6th assumption is this: circumstance guides us on our journey to wholeness.
What we say is circumstance loves us more than we do, because we think we want to go in a certain direction to please our culture, please society, be loved, be accepted. And our soul came for a completely different journey. And so we gave overarching act of free will to the loving universe to have circumstance intervene and take us on that journey we asked to go on. So that's how much circumstance loves us. All right, 7.
I just did that one. 6.
I know.
It's you.
Oh, it's me?
Yeah.
Fine. There is only now, this precious present moment. Living trustingly in the now, we experience the true nature of the universe. It is the gateway to the trust frequency,
Being in
the
the
now.
The eighth assumption, all of creation is one. Separation is a man-made illusion. We are the conscious, loving universe.
Humanity, this is 9. You know, we're not giving them any time to think about if they agree, disagree, or, but.
Are you able to keep up with the little?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're not giving you any time to ponder
I see
whether you
some notes.
agree, disagree,
Right.
etc.
I mean, we're just dumping a whole new reality on you. Our
Well,
apologies.
but they all know anyway. Okay, here we go. Humanity is on an evolutionary upward spiral leading inexorably to a higher reality, the trust frequency, heaven on earth.
And finally, the 10th assumption, the trust frequency is a real place of unfathomable joy, peace, and abundance that is freely available to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Would you read that for me again, please? Just to make sure you can pronounce that word.
The trust frequency is a real place of unfathomable joy, peace, and abundance that is freely available to anyone, anywhere, anytime. So.
And there's a little note at the bottom of this little worksheet that says, the above assumptions provide clues to aligning one's life with the abundant, joyful nature of the universe. So there we are.
So there we are.
So
And
I don't know, Stephen, if you would time these, we thought we would offer about, I would say, 2 minutes for anyone who has a story, a personal experience that has validated what we just expressed, that the universe is indeed a conscious, loving universe, that circumstance actually loves us. We're not victims, we're beneficiaries. And if you don't have such a tale to tell, feel free to tell a tale of horror and misery, if you like. That's, you know, we're free. Free will allows us to do.
And if you don't have either, feel free to comment or to ask a question.
Okay.
Take this time as your time. Maybe is 2 minutes long enough? Maybe it should be 3 because we don't have tons of people. Maybe it should be.
We probably could do 3. I mean, it seems like it's an intimate enough group.
Okay.
All right.
And I also would remind everyone, just because we're going to be doing some deeper sharing potentially here. I always share the recording out to the ambassador group, and then also, especially tonight's session, Carolyn Anderson and Catherine Roski were interested in it. So
And
just
Juan Carlos.
And one Carlos.
yeah. So just know that so just be mindful of what you feel comfortable sharing, knowing that this recording is going to go out.
Great, thank you, Steve.
And Shakina, you're welcome to participate.
So remember to unmute your, I think just put your hand up and then unmute and we'll take it away.
There's Jan.
There we go.
Hi there. Okay. My story is about the third assumption, that we create reality by the power of our consciousness. And I have many examples through my life. And before I even knew what I was doing, I can give many examples, but the one I'll share with all of you right now is about a passion I had for horses, but I didn't have the financial or other capability to satisfy that desire. But I just kept wanting it and believing it could happen. And my children, I had 3 children by the time I could really indulge in this desire. And what I ended up doing, I was just led. The universe led me to go to a barn, a big training facility here in Colorado near Golden called Table Mountain Ranch. And I went up and I just went in the barn and I watched the trainers training the horses. And after a while, one of the trainers came over to me and said, hi. And I said, hi. She says, can I help you? And I said, I want to work here. And I love horses and I have an affinity with them. I want to work for here. And can I do that? And we ended up talking, and I ended up volunteering with these amazing, like Olympic level dressage competitors. And it was a wonderful experience. It deeply satisfying to my soul. And so we do create our reality. If our heart's desire is such, and we open to that and are willing to take a step or two, it just happens. I ended up working for them for about 7 or 8 years, I think, and just having a glorious time. See, and I never had my own horse, but I had everybody else's. I got to ride them. I got to play with them. I got to love them and hug them and be with them and smell them and get stepped on and everything. It was really glorious. So we do create our own reality. And I have many more stories, but that's one.
And you took bold, committed action.
Yes, I did. And it was kind of scary. I was afraid to do it, but I did it anyway.
Yeah, so that's the key piece, the action piece.
It is. It's necessary. Yeah.
All right.
Looks like Sharon had her hand up.
Yeah. So I have a story, which is really a trust story with regards to my book and publishing my book. So I went away to a weekend seminar with the publishing company that eventually published my book, and with no intention of signing up for the self-mentoring, the mentored self-publishing program. A friend was already in the program and he suggested it, and he said, just go for the weekend. You'll have a great time. You'll meet some really good people. So that's what I did. No intention of coming on board with the program. And on the way home, on the flight home, I just had this overwhelming knowing that I needed to do that program. And it was quite a substantial financial investment, which I didn't have the resources to do, but I was like, okay, I've got the drop in. I'm very clear that this is what I need to do. You just have to supply, because I don't have the resources to go ahead and commit to this. And the next day I was having a conversation with Jared, my husband, and we were trying to look at finances and how we could maybe get a loan and do this and that. And then I said, I think I've got like a small amount of superannuation and I wonder how much is there. And he said, oh, you won't be able to access that. You have to be like, I don't know, 65 or whatever. And I thought, well, I will just ring the superannuation fund and see what's there. And it was from during the years that I worked at the university, and I hadn't worked at uni for quite a few years, so I had no idea what the amount was. Anyway, I rang the super fund. The guy said to me, how old are you? And I told him, and he said, you can have the full amount within a couple of days. Are you still working for that uni? And I said, no. And he said, would you like me to tell you how much it is? And I said, yes, very much. So he got on his computer and looked it up. It was exactly the amount that I needed for the course.
No, that's great.
And I had it in my bank account in 2 days. It was extraordinary. And it was so the right program for me to publish my book. And I never looked back. So I was like, thank you.
Wow.
But I had to take the committed action. So I contacted the company and said, yes, I'm in, count me in with this publishing program. And I just had such a strong conviction that because it was right for me that the resources would come through. And so they did, with no effort really on my part other than a phone call.
Well, you aligned with your highest inner prompting, right? You listened.
Totally.
And acted.
Yeah.
So, 2 of the 7 A's right there.
Probably all of them.
Probably all of them. Wonderful story.
Yeah, and I now have my book, it was really exciting. So, yeah.
Sweet. Sweet. Who's next? Somebody else have a story or a comment? Roxana.
Roxana.
You'll have to unmute.
I think I also have many stories, but those are not in a very organized way. I don't want to share tonight. I want to make comments.
Okay.
Like, all these assumptions, I think I leave, not always, but often. Most of the time I leave them. And when I lose leaving them, I clearly see the darkness, and I then realize, oh, I can change it. And it happened many times that I was able to change it. And that amazed me and reinforced my learning. I have been on this journey actively for last 5 years. So I'm a beginner, but I know it, that this is it. I agree with the assumptions. So that's the biggest comment, that I am on this journey and I'm consciously traveling.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you, Roxana.
Anyone else?
There's
There's
Dawn.
Dawn.
Mute myself first. Yeah, I think they're wonderful assumptions. And I do believe that what makes the difference are the assumptions that we make. We don't have total knowledge, so we act on whatever the assumptions we make. But I do have some different way of looking at things, because I think, for example, the idea that of love, I think there are different kinds of love. Unfortunately, in our language, we have this one idea of love, unconditional love. But for example, most males have tribal love. They direct their energy for the benefit of their tribe. And we know that's one of the reasons why we have war, because of tribal love. And we also have the need for hate. So hate is very important, because we need hate in order to hate injustice and poverty and disease and so on. So I think the problem, from my point of view, our language was created by our ancestors. I think evolution tells us that our ancestors created a language that was necessary for them to survive in primitive times. And that language was to support basically the male dominant figure. The male was ordained, or have given the impulse of having muscles and the seed to create many people. And for that reason, it was appropriate years ago that we have war. That was the only way we could settle disputes. But now we're evolved to a point where we need to go from egotistical love, when our cells were divided, we made an identical self. Then we went to the second stage where we had offspring that we had families, and we had familial love. And then we had, when the sexes were divided, we had erotic love. And all of these are basically different kinds of all unconditional love at the time. Now we've evolved to a point we have the need for unconditional love, and what I call the sixth form of love, forgiveness. So
1 minute, Don.
okay, so I'm going to end up here, but just say that I think the assumptions are all wonderful, but I think there's the basic issue that as long as we keep thinking of either or, it's right or wrong or good or bad, when we need, there's certain kinds of love that our language doesn't really describe very well, that it's important, and others that create difficulty. When we love our tribe, then that's why we have wars. The tribe says, my tribe, my God is the one to love and not yours. So I think I love the assumptions and the idea of all the A's, but I think we need to create our own set of assumptions. To put it another way, I don't think we have free will. I think we're born with an animal brain that's already been programmed to do certain things, when I think our Creator has given us the opportunity. They've given us a special organ, a genie organ, that only humans have, that enables us to create our own destiny if we educate ourselves. And I think that's the opportunity, wonderful opportunity we have. So I thank you for allowing me to share that.
Thank you, Don.
Shakina.
Shakina, are you going to share?
Yes. So first, before I start sharing, I want to raise up the fact that Catherine and Makasha just had a grandchild with Mira. She was born today, and I received the announcement, and everybody is just thriving. So they'll be listening, and I just want to raise that up and say hello to Carolyn and give thanks to Barbara right now.
Yeah.
Could I just say that I just had a great grandchild
Good for you.
whose name is Mara.
Oh my God.
Beautiful.
Mazel tov. That's
We're all
awesome.
connected.
I'm saying. So what came to my mind was around love. So interesting I would come after you. I thought I have lots of stories, but the one that just stays in my mind at the moment is a story about when I had an NDE, and I was out of my body looking down on an operating table, and I wasn't sure who that person was. I was experiencing myself engulfed in unconditional love. It was so palpable, so engulfing. I couldn't imagine ever leaving it once I realized it was me. And I was given an opportunity through you could call it a voice, but I heard that I could stay if I wanted to, but if I came back, my life would get better from that day forward, which it did. I had many things going on that were causing me a lot of distortions. But fast forward, I've been editing my book, and I start the book with the story of the NDE. And with meditation and prayer, I've received this download. They said to me, "You missed something. We didn't just want you to get the fact that you're loved. We wanted you to get the fact that that is who you are. That vibrational energy, that unconditional, all-encompassing vibrational field is the essence of you and of all of us." And now we're talking many years, decades since I had that experience. And I just laugh at the fact that I just now am receiving that, and I'm so appreciative that I'm at a place in my life, enjoying the trust frequency, resonating deeply with the teachings as a result of my own experience. So I thank you for hearing my words.
Well, thank you for sharing. And that's assumption 8. All of creation is one. Separation is a man-made illusion. We are the conscious, loving universe. We're not only loved, we are love. Thank you for supporting that with your sharing of your experience of all that is.
And I think everybody knows what an NDE is. It's a near-death experience. Extraordinary. Anybody who's been through that has no more fear of death.
And has experienced this conscious, loving universe in its oneness and in its love.
So
Let me just say one thing to that, though.
Yeah.
It took me years and years to unravel the distortions, but always remembering that experience and what I felt, which kept me going towards the light even more. So it wasn't an immediate arrival, in case anybody's had one and they didn't have an immediate arrival either.
You know, I'll say something about Barbara. When we're here at Sunrise Ranch, where she lived with us for the last 2.5 years of her life. And when she went into her coma, I was absolutely convinced that she was having a near-death experience and that she was going to return in a blaze of light with a whole new adventure for all of us. And she didn't do that, which is interesting. So, Barbara, what's the plan? she's always had a plan. And, you know, I can't imagine she's actually abandoned us. It felt that way for the first week until we all came together here at the ranch, and it was such a healing. Because we didn't grieve together. It was so much joy. So that's an interesting fact about death. And even when you lose a close loved one, that it's a joyful, that's hard, but it was such joy.
Well, let me tell you my true trust tale, my most recent one.
Ooh.
Has to do with Barbara.
Ooh.
Okay. A friend of mine took a picture of Barbara, and she had a coat on, and I hadn't remembered that coat, but when she passed, I'm like, Sherry, I have to have that coat. It's me. Okay. So Barbara's niece comes to Sunrise Ranch and packs up the whole place, and Sherry goes off to Costa Rica, and she comes back from Costa Rica. The place is all packed up. You've been there, some of you. And so I said, Sherry, remember that coat? I really want that coat. It's me. So Sherry says, okay. And she talks as she goes down, because the niece had put everything down in the cellar. So Sherry says, okay, Spirit, make it easy for me to find the coat. So she goes down into the cellar, and on the floor in a ball is the coat. Okay. And lying beside it is a heart, an embroidered heart that I gave to Barbara when we returned from Chiapas last spring. Okay? So that's a wow. And that's Barbara blessing me. And so I have her coat, and just know that she's with us. But that's a true trust tale.
There you go. Yeah.
So who's next? Anybody else want to share a comment or a true trust tale?
There we go.
Chris, your hand was up?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi there. As you may have noticed, I was driving up until now.
Oh, that was you. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Glad you were here.
So I tuned in a little bit late, maybe about 10 minutes or 15. And I think mine is a comment, maybe combo. First of all, I can, they all resonate with me. And I too am basically living all of them. And it's, what's coming through is just that confirmation of this is the truth. And I'm going on the right path for me right now. And I guess I've had some confirming moments. And they get more and more. Like, for example, even last evening, I parked my vehicle in front of the apartment building I'm in right now. And there was something that was just telling me, don't park there. So I actually moved to a different spot, thinking that, well, maybe there's, the cameras from inside the building can see my car out front. And I woke up this morning, and the manager was shaking his head, and he looked forlorn, and it was like, what? And my vehicle was smashed. The windows were smashed in it. And, I just knew I wasn't supposed to park my vehicle. And this is just a small thing, but I mean, there's so many other things exactly like that. When I'm listening to that small voice, it's just, it's like a guidance. And that's just one little example. And there's other things that are just opening it up. And I'm trying to remember the different categories you have. But maybe what I'll just explain is, and then you can put it where it belongs, is what I've been really practicing lately is to let go of my inner resistance.
About a minute, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And I'm letting go of inner resistance to my maybe an old pattern or an old thought, and opening up to a higher frequency, what I believe is a higher frequency, and for me. And those little things are happening more and more and more often. And that, for me, that's confirmation that this is also truly important about the frequency that, that I walk through life with. And I really like your definition. Your definitions will be in the new dictionary. I like that. So yeah, I don't know where that fits, but I think it has something, it's right along the line with what we're talking about. So
thank you, Chris. I'm so sorry to hear about your car. That's such a...
But the other thing is the circumstance. Where I was able to do is look at stepping into what I need to do to help the community here and help other people with their frequencies as well. It was a circumstance that helped me to step into more action towards what I need to do in my community.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, so it was multifaceted.
It was, yeah, it was cool.
Teaching you to listen to your inner voice, process that resistance to listening.
Yeah.
Right. And allowing the loving universe through you. But one thing, it seemed, what we're learning from you is that resistance piece. And really, nobody's really expressed that. And our resistance to our own knowing, to aligning with our own knowing, and our willingness to shift our assumptions, but some innate resistance to that. So thank you.
You're welcome. And the car is fixable. It was just this passenger window and the windshield. So it's totally fixable.
And the windshield, whoa.
What a shock, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Big lesson.
Yeah, wow.
FOG, we call those FOGs.
You're not allowed to curse on the radio.
Effing opportunity for growth.
Oh, no, not another FOG.
So, let's see. Anybody else? Is Vicky there? Or is she's just.
See how big Vicky smile.
Yeah.
Is she there? Is she lurking?
So.
We also have someone on the phone too, and I don't know who's on the phone, but.
Oh, and we have Sharon again.
Sharon, yeah. So now we can
Hello.
just.
Look.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Who's on the
Can
phone?
you hear me? It's Aurora tuning in from Australia. How are you all?
Hi, Aurora.
Hi, Aurora.
I have a little example to share.
Oh, great.
And before I do that, I firstly just want to really acknowledge how I am absolutely loving witnessing you both in your genius.
Oh,
and there's something so palpable about being able to name, to actually name in words what you're speaking to. So the definition felt very powerful because it gives us an opportunity then to share in a very clear way what we are seeing and walking and living. So I love that. And my little experience happened to do with the purchase of a property. So my husband and I were looking for an apartment in Sydney, and we had written down all of the attributes of the apartment, and a whole range of circumstances occurred that showed us that it wasn't going to be possible. And yet the morning of the auction, I remember just tuning into my meditation, and I had a clear yes, this property is for you, it's yours. And I remember turning up at the auction day. We didn't actually have the bank approval yet. There'd been a delay on an evaluation, which is part of our process here in Australia. So we didn't have the money. But I said to my husband, we need to write in and be a bidder. I don't know how this is happening, but we're buying this property today. And I remember that absolute trust. Now, if many of you have been following the property market globally, Sydney properties are very expensive. And so I remember sitting at the chair, and our property came up on the market last. And I said, Aaron, this is ours. And I remember the real estate agent coming over and saying, you should bid. And I looked at my husband and we said, well, we don't have the money, so how are we going to bid? And then I remembered that if you bid and for some reason the property hasn't sold and you get passed in, you can go into a negotiation process. So I nudged my husband with a big fluttering in my heart, and I said, put your card up, bid. And what ended up happening was the only property that didn't sell at auction. And when we sat in to do the negotiation, I remembered a clause that my lawyer had told me, that if you pass in a property, you've got 5 days, you've got a 5 days clearing process, which we ended up negotiating with the 5-day clearing process. And then over those 5 days, of course, the money came in and the property became ours. But I do remember there was a lot at stake here in terms of risk, but it was a calculated risk because the trust was there. And I'm really grateful to remember that as I'm going through some major completions with my day role and moving into a new property again here in Australia, that it's everything. So I just really appreciate it, and I'm grateful to have that remembering today and to be in the company of you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well,
Risk.
that word, yeah, that word risk, okay, there's no such word in our vocabulary when we're in the trust frequency, which she knew. She was so solidly in trust that, in fact, there was no risk, because you can't, that's the Achilles heel, just having that word, doubt and risk.
And I love that, because my husband kept coming up knowing that if that was nothing that could sway it. So that absolute, that absolute conviction. So thank you for the reminder. How beautiful.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
So I have a little tale. So about 16 years ago, I was married to a woman who is not Connie, who was the mother of my 5 children. Wonderful, wonderful woman, but pretty much immersed in victim consciousness. She had been abused as a little girl, and it was very difficult, for example, for her to be with a man. Long story, we won't go there. But long story short, she really couldn't be with me, this man. She just had to get out of the relationship. And I'd been fighting that, and we'd been going through all sorts of therapies and counselings and so on. And we were in our 50s, and it was looking terminal, and it was feeling terminal. And I was not feeling good about myself, about my life. I really thought my love life was over. Romance was an absurd memory of 28 years before. And I went out to visit with a friend in Maui, on the beautiful island of Maui. And in the morning I went down, I took her car, dropped her off at work, and went to this beautiful beach and got in the water, and was really having a little sort of private personal retreat. And I went up and walked up to the top of the dunes and sat down on the sand and looked out at the ocean and closed my eyes and just tuned in. And a voice from the sand dune spoke to me and said, "She's right around the corner." I mean, really clearly, I heard this. She's right around the corner. What do you mean? Who's right around the corner? She's right around the corner. Oh, well, that was encouraging. Whoever she was right around the corner, and it felt good. So I got back to New York, and Susan picked me up at the airport. And as we drove back to where we lived out in Eastern Long Island, out in the Hamptons, she said, "Oh, by the way, there's some Siberian shamans going to be giving a workshop this weekend." I said, "Siberian shamans in the Hamptons? That sounds about right. I'm going. Are you going?" She says, "No, I'm not going to go." I said, "Well, I'm going to go." So I did. Did a bunch of things for me. It brought my smile back, got me dancing again. Really woke me up. Didn't have anything to do with she's right around the corner, however. So 2 weeks later, I went up to the Omega Institute, because that was the next place these shamans were going to be presenting. And there was a gathering called the Gathering of the Wisdom Keepers. And there were about 110 of us. And guess who was in that circle? There she is. And she was right around the corner. It was a long corner, it was a 100-mile corner or something. Anyway, amazingly, that you could actually get this voice that tells you something that just gives you a certain sense of security. No specifics on what it is. And yet, 3 months later, I was profoundly, deeply in this relationship, which started a whole new phase of my life and for both of us. And here we are. So that's my
Sweet story.
A little tale, darling.
So we met at the Omega point at Omega. And if any of you know what the Omega point is.
Of Teilhard de Chardin. It's that quantum leap moment.
Right. You know, right? Tell them what it is, the Omega point.
They know what it is.
Does everybody know what the Omega point is?
So
it's
the,
so good. Yeah.
the Omega Institute has a spot on the property, and they actually call it the Omega Point, and that's sort of tongue in cheek. And it's where you pull up when you check in.
No, but what's Teilhard de Chardin's Omega point?
It's the point at which the noosphere quantum leaps to another level. It kind of sounds an awful lot like Barbara Marx Habit, doesn't it? Barbara got a lot of her inspiration from Teilhard de Chardin and from Sri Aurobindo, and those were the two teachers when I first came to this country, I was introduced to their teachings and profoundly influenced me. So
that's the Omega point, the time we make this leap. So that's where we met.
Look see
who's here.
I see somebody with, wait a minute.
Purple hair.
Purple hair?
Woo! So Vicki, you've been listening. Are you ready to share something?
Sure.
Okay.
I've been here. I had trouble connecting at the beginning, but no problem once I got on. And I would say I have a million stories too. I had a near-death experience, but the important part I got out of what you read is that I believe that a lot of what you said, first of all, most of us here understand and live quite a bit of. And I feel like it's part of what we need to claim moving forward for the evolutionary ambassadors, because I think it's foundational. So extra little bit for me is when you guys are talking about it, you are so light. You are so happy, you are passionate, you are smiling, and you're just bubbling over with this vibrant energy. And a lot of times, Connie, you especially can be serious. So when, exactly. So, but when you're doing this, you are just shining like incredibly. So I love it, and I would definitely love for us to really look hard at this and incorporating in what we say as the foundational things for the evolutionary ambassadors moving forward. So thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you. And we always felt with Barbara's work that this was foundational.
Yes.
And Spirit put us together with her this 2 years where we gave it to her bit by bit. She respected it. She was threatened by it a little because it didn't totally fit her thing, but it did. And she honored and respected us and loved us. So that's what I believe, because she was such an exemplar of that evolutionary leap of inspiring it, going there, staying there in the positive, and seeing this new humanity, which is so aligned with my thinking and this trust frequency, that trust that it's all good, it's all going somewhere, we're on an evolutionary upward spiral. All that Barbara would say, well, we're on this point of devolution or evolution, and I'd say, Barbara, has everything ever devolved? Because we're and so thank you for that.
And I agree completely with you that there is no longer an either or. We already made the decision. We are already spiraling in this incredibly positive direction. And we just need to open our eyes a little bit more to see the constant feedback we're getting from around us that this is the case. So I love what you all put forth. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the answers you get depend on the questions you ask. So when one asks, if this is absolute, this construct, and we're absolutely on an evolutionary upward spiral, and there is absolutely only love, then in fact, you say, and I say, okay, how does this serve the coming of peace on earth, the coming of heaven on earth, everything.
An event,
everything. Everything, what's happening in this country, in this world, it's all serving. That's all there is.
Yes.
Is the coming
Amen.
of, and it's all to serve us, to align with our divinity and to choose to bring it on earth through our behavior, through our choices. And what I got the other day was that we're actually doing this exercise for all of creation. That we're actually, once we really cleanse of fear and once we really choose to get into this frequency and bring it to pass on earth, that it's going to shift all of creation, because that's our job. It was this humanity. We're going to put you here in this dense experimental situation. You're going to cleanse yourselves of fear for all of creation. So I got the other day.
Okay, so one thing different than what you said, it's already working. Your work is already working.
Yeah.
Not when you get somewhere. No, it's already, that event already happened, and that was your yes.
Yeah.
And don't forget was it the seventh assumption? There is only now, this precious moment. So if indeed that is true, and we really take that to be true without any doubt whatsoever, then it means, yes, in a sense, it has already happened, because everything the only thing that's actually real is this moment, which I just mentioned, and it's already passed, so that's gone. It's really challenging to be truly in the present moment, but that's the gateway to the trust frequency, because when you're in the moment, there is no yesterday, there is no tomorrow, there's only now. And that, what did you call it, the gateway? The gateway to the trust frequency is being in the present moment. So if one can take each of these 10 assumptions and essentially construct a reality out of it, and it's quite okay to adjust it, mess with it. Didn't have to be 10. There were 10 commandments. Why were there 10 commandments in the Bible, right? So it was an arbitrary number. So, okay, 10 assumptions. That's enough. There could have been 11 or 19 or 3s, but anyway, there's 10. And if we can, remember what Connie asked us to do at the very beginning, take them as absolutely true. Knowing that the third assumption is that we create reality with the power of our consciousness. In quantum science, it's called the observer effect. We live in an observer-created reality. Where we put our attention is what unfolds in our lives. And I think we notice that people have very different realities. Even in this group, there are people who have distinctly different realities. And a part of that, where do I put my attention? If I'm reading the news and I'm constantly focused on this apparently terrible stuff that's going on, I'm creating just my personal reality is different from if I'm in a state of total trust. So the purpose of this work really is to learn to live from a place of trust, with no doubt, with no fear. There is no scarcity. There is plenty. There is abundance. There is love. There's another gorgeous person in your life. Whatever it might be, whatever it is for your personal path, for our.
And Jesus was a way shower. He showed us the abundant universe with the loaves and the fishes and all his miracles and all that. He showed us, and John Lennon with Imagine described this state, this place, this reality. Yeah. And so many other way showers, just people in our lives that experience this and live in this trust, are way showers that it can be done. It doesn't matter what the collective is doing. We can have our own reality because we're the center of our own reality and we create it. And Diane Collins, I've been studying her work because we've been in contact with each other because there's such a resonance with us. I gave you links to 2 of her articles, and she really goes into the observer effect. She brings some stuff to this. You know, we're expressing the quantum science piece because she has a book, Do You Quantum Think? But anyway, I recommend those 2 articles that I gave you links to.
You sent them. Oh, they're linked.
You have links to them. So anyone else have any comments? We're at 7.
We've got about 15 or 16 minutes left.
So I'd love for anybody else to.
I'll tell you mine.
Yeah. Oh, no. There you are.
Sorry, Stephen. You said this.
Yeah. No. Well, I love hearing the stories. You know, so it's for me, and this is within recent years. You know, I met Barbara for the first time in 2015. And I really didn't know her well until we started working together last year. But in 2015 is when I released my book, The Self-Aware Lover. And I've gone back through it recently. And it's amazing how much of the language that I wrote in this book matches Barbara's language. And I hadn't studied her before I wrote this. So you know, the resonant field is what I feel, you know, I know we are in. So the thing that came up for me around that time that was really buzzing around 2015 was, and even before that, was that I was really seeking a platform through which to do my work. And I knew, like, the nudge, the impulse was that I was to contribute in a much greater way than just working one-on-one with people. And you know, if I would get mired in the how, I would get anxious and be very self-judgmental and all those things. And when I could release the how and just trust that it was and it is in the process of coming together, I was at peace with the knowing. I was at peace being in the trust. And then, sure enough, I eventually got linked up with the humanities team, and that became a platform for me to begin delivering, you know, through the conscious business program, and then even greater through my collaboration with Barbara, which was never in my conscious plan. It was in the universe's plan. So I'm here tonight with all of you because of that, and continuing this work because of that. So so it's the proof of the trust has been profoundly evident in my journey and my vocational experience. So so that's a really quick version of a very long story.
Well, I want to say one thing. The fact that your words and Barbara's words, you know, to me, it's a frequency that, like a radio frequency. When we're tuned in to that frequency, it doesn't matter when we were on the planet or where we're on the planet. We're tuned into those words, those concepts. So nobody's taking words or concepts from anybody else. It's just the true nature of the universe, and our truth and our articulation of what we see and hear. But there's proof in the pudding right there, that resonance, that you're using the same words and you didn't get them from her and she didn't get them from you.
Right.
So wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
You know, we were driving up from Crestone today, and we'd been given a book there by James O'Dea. And I think most of you might know who that is. And Connie was reading part of it, and it was precisely out of the trust frequency book, which we published in 2012. And this was published in 2017. Same words, and I certainly didn't steal our ideas. You know, it's just, there's a truth, and then there's countless perspectives on it and articulations of it. But it's interesting because when we started this, the word trust was nowhere to be seen. And that's been sneaking in everywhere. So.
And you know what's in the middle of trust?
You.
Us.
Us. And we do a bunch of work around the founding of this nation. And U.S., the United States, the U.S. of A., the us of America, all the work we have to do to realize the vision that the founders of this country had for humanity. And that's a whole nother piece, so we won't go into that.
Whole other field.
But how about Andrew?
Look, Andrew Kane just came on. Did you, Andrew?
Andrew.
Are you there?
Andrew. No, I guess he's off.
He was there for a minute.
He was there for a minute, but I'm sure he.
I'm sorry. I've been.
You have a story.
These calls lately. I don't know. Hi.
I bet you have a true trust tale. How the trust. How the universe has shown up for you in magical ways.
Well, actually, everything evolves around that trust, because working with the energy of the divine keeps me from being able to not be in the that frequency, because it's a high frequency, and there's not really any the other way to do it. You know, I'm not someone who can lie or, you know, whatever. You know, I have to be, you know, honest with the energy of the, you know, because, yeah. So, but yeah, I've missed a few calls and I'm late on the call. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to replay all these calls. But hi everybody. So
this is about the trust frequency.
I know, and I really wanted to be on the call, so I will be rewinding to see what I missed.
Being recorded, Andrew, as well.
Yeah, that's a good thing that you guys are doing that. Thanks, Stephen. So, yeah, is there any question that you have for me? I'm sorry.
Well, no, we're just, people are telling how the universe has shown up for them in a magical way.
Well, for me, it's just been, you know, I've had a lot of challenges in my life. That's, you know, I won't go into fully, but I would just say that this energy that you're, you know, teaching people. For me, it's there's really no other. I mean, wait, I'm sorry. How has it been magical on me? It's allowed me to be connected to the energy of love and the truth of who we are as species on this planet, to evolve and to you know, save humanity and everything that Barbara's teaching. So for me, it's just been about the past 23 years. Is, you know, my life is, although has challenges, this frequency is what keeps me alive, is what keeps me going. It's the only thing, because I've had so many crazy things happening over the years, and the frequency of being able to be connected to higher planes of you know, non-human form and all that kind of stuff, and connect God and Jesus and Christ consciousness and oneness. Is trust frequency is all about that. It's all about being connected to the energy of love, which is the greatest energy of that's why we're here. So I hope that answers your question.
Yep, that's it, man.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, man.
Nice to see you.
You too.
Give our love to New York City.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're drawing to a close, right? I mean,
We've got
it's
about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. So does anyone else have it? Sharon?
I think,
yes.
And I think Jan put her hand up as well, didn't you? So let's hear from Sharon.
There's a couple of things I wanted to share. One was, Stephen, when you were doing the meditation at the beginning and you got us to imagine that connection, a golden thread of connection, the image that dropped into my mind, which goes back to what you were saying at the beginning, Andrew, about, well, where are you, Barbara? So I had this image of this golden thread like a in the shape of like a spider's web. And then it started going up like that. And as it went up like that, and I looked up, there was Barbara, and the web was a skirt coming down from her waist, connecting us all together. Very beautiful image. So I just wanted to share that image because it was quite a surprise. I wasn't expecting that, and it was very lovely.
Thank you for that. Wow.
She's here. And the other thing I wanted to share was the response to, I think it was you, Chris, that you said something about the resistance, and Connie picked it up. I just want to make a comment about that aspect of living these assumptions as a way of life, because I believe in them wholeheartedly, and I feel like I'm in a learning process of aligning with them, forgetting them sometimes, aligning with them, forgetting them sometimes, and that's part of my humanity in growing into an evolutionary human being. So for me, those assumptions and principles are like the description of what it is to live in Dharma, right, instead of karma, and to be carried by the stream of livingness where we're meant to be going as a species and as a race. And, you know, we've had centuries of living according to karma and that old vibration, and so we're still throwing off the remnants of that, and it's a learning process. So perfection is not required. Simply just getting back on the horse when you fall off is all that's required. Not doing the post-mortem about karma, but just, okay, I've jumped off the horse, get back on the horse, keep going.
Sweet.
So they're my reflections about what you're saying. And, you know, I believe in those things so deeply, and I still find myself drifting and then coming back, and then drifting, and then coming back. And I think that's just part of the learning process. And, you know, we are human beings and perfection is not required.
I like the idea of from karma to dharma. Because in this construct, it's not about karma, it's about choice and free will of choosing to go on a journey to wholeness, into alignment with our divinity, all those parts of ourselves we do not yet love, having the universe show us those through our experiences. Our soul actually magnetizes behaviors to show us those parts of ourselves we do not yet love. And that's a whole nother aspect of this work. That's in the links that I sent you, the Dance of Souls, I wrote about that, and we're going to be doing a course. We're designing a course right now. An online course that's Become Beloved, and we're saying, don't take this course if you don't want to go deep and shift from victim to beloved. And that's a big, huge process, because victim is so powerful, and we are so into our stories, and to understand that everything in our life happens for us, not to us, is a big deal. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that's coming up very soon, this course.
Probably August, yeah.
So
I want to tell a story from yesterday. It's very quick. We were in Crestone, Colorado, and walked into a coffee shop for a meeting that we had scheduled. And a woman comes racing across the room and hugs me outrageously. Stefania. Anybody remember Stefania from the Evolutionary Ambassadors, the wife of Mark and the mother of Carlota and the little boy, Alejandro. And they today flew to Colombia. So that's where they are. Just an update on Mark and his family. So it's amazing. There she was.
And he's finishing his job in a month and coming to Crestone, and but there was her and all her exuberance and all her
wild Spanishness,
wildness.
Yeah.
But Mark was just coming in that day, and they're flying out tomorrow, next day, today.
That was today
for Colombia.
Yeah.
So that's an update on Mark and Stefania and Carlota and Alejandro. So anyone else? How are we doing? Anyone else have any thoughts?
Yeah, there's Don.
Yeah, just a minute comment. First of all, thank you all for sharing. I really enjoy the energy that you're all putting into this. I guess my feeling now is that as a psychiatrist, having the opportunity much of my life to listen to people who are so unhappy, not loving themselves, I can't help but raise the question, can it just be simply a matter of trust? It seems to me that we need to think, is there a way that we can teach some of the skills? Maybe that's what you're getting at, Andrew, and Connie, when you're talking about your course. I hope, that'd be the kind of thing, and I have also a book by a guy by the name of Steve Dynaco, and it seems to me one of his points is that love is something we can teach. I think I think I'm fairly quoting what you said in your book. And I think somehow we need to also find our energy. How do we spread a good word? It's one thing just to sort of have faith and trust, but my preoccupation is how do you bring about some change, particularly when we have people like Einstein and United Nations committees, and you have the doomsday clock, and you have all these people who are knowledgeable saying, we're really in a very difficult situation, and we don't seem to have any answers right now. So I'm looking for answers, and I'm looking forward to sharing those possibilities in a group like this, because I think it's the most powerful way that we can learn by this kind of process. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Don. Let me say something on that. Yes, I truly believe that love is something, human love is something we can learn, we can be trained in, we can gain confidence in through examples and support and kindness and those things that really help us. And if you've had a lifetime in psychiatry, you're dealing with the troubled people, trying to get them normal. And my field has always been the interest of getting normal people super normal. So, and there's this whole spectrum of human possibility, right? From the very low miserable state to the very high, right? So this is teachable. It is doable, I believe, and this is it's the essence of our work. It is what we are doing. And this online course called Becoming Beloved is specifically, it used to be called, we've done these workshops called Moving from Victim to Beloved. And we wanted to leave the negative aspect out. So we didn't call it Victim to Beloved. We just call it Becoming Beloved. Because the fact of existence is we are already beloved. There is no alternative. We're actually in love because we're surrounded, the universe is love. And if that's true, and if we take it as true, there's no other place to be. We cannot escape. There's no way out. We're in love. We're simply encapsulated by it, love with a capital L. And then all of the behaviors and everything else, I realize it's really tricky because we have these people who are just sociopaths and just so disconnected that it's very troublesome and troubling. And I recognize that. However, the very brief summary of the entire work we do is my personal mantra. And the first night I met Connie here at the Omega Institute, she was in her van. She had a camper van with a pop top in the parking lot. And I went to visit her and she had a little bumper sticker there. And what does it say? Trust the loving universe. So 4 words, just trust the loving universe. If we can trust, firstly, that the universe is loving. And secondly, if we can truly trust that, it's completely liberating. It changes everything, even the most disastrous thing. Don, you, I believe, are concerned that we humans are going to blow ourselves off the face of the earth and end up vaporized. Trust even that. How's that for a challenge? Because we are spirits in the material world. We are spirits having a human experience. So to trust even that, none of us would choose that. I absolutely do not choose that. But if that were to happen, we would simply be spirits in a different reality than the one we're in right now. So I think for me, the lesson is to have no doubt, no fear, and to absolutely trust the loving universe, whatever may come.
So it has to do, our behaviors and our stories have to do with our core assumptions about the nature of the universe.
Absolutely.
Simply that. And if we, and in this construct, humanity being a collection of divine, autonomous, sovereign beings who have chosen to incarnate on earth on the journey to wholeness with a gift and a purpose, if that's so, then each person who is in victim is actually it's a misinterpretation of experiences in one's life that are taking us on that journey to wholeness. So it really shifts everything to shift our core assumptions. And that's what we feel is our gift that we're bringing to the party. And that's our action point that you're speaking about, Dawn, is, okay, there is another way of seeing the world. And quantum science is proving it now. The observer effect, we create our own reality, that sort of thing. So anyway, we offer this construct and take it or leave it. And we just really appreciate your being here and sharing your stories. And
we love each and every one of you.
Yeah.
We really, really do.
And we love you.
No kidding. Yeah.
Get it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see everyone.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen.
We miss everybody who wasn't here, but
Stephen, I owe you an email, so we'll catch up there.
Okay.
All right.
Love to all.
Yep.
bye bye.
Bye, Roxana.
Bye, Roxana. Bye, 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 bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Don.